You're listening to the all-new KBLU Radio Network. That's the Blue Raven Network. Visit our website at www.oneblueraven.weebly.com.
The world of 1916 was complex, or the world of 1945 was complex. The world of 2016 is intensely complex. You'll be dealing with terrorists. You'll be dealing with hybrid armies. You'll be dealing with little green men. You're going to be dealing with tribes. You'll be dealing with national leaders and local leaders. You'll be dealing with politics and economics. You'll be dealing with direct fire and indirect fire. And you're going to be dealing with it all. And it's all going to be dealt with simultaneously.
November 14th, 2016. Scott Hensler on Tinfoil Hat Club. Thanks for joining here on Monday night. I mentioned last Friday that over the weekend I was going to be praying for a young girl that was in a circumstance that has to do with the relation of the incident here with the kids in the lake and the mother in the lake that were found. And good reports, happy reports, things are all very well. And those who were praying and supporting, I thank you. See, it goes to show when there's intervention, because I had the opportunity to work with this child over a year ago. And when you break curses, when you bless them, when you cast out demons, when you heal their spirit that's been wounded, then the enemy just can't come in and alter and change you to be something that God never intended. But, the sins come to the third and fourth generation. This is a fact. And I say it's a fact because of all the years that I've been doing deliverance, breaking curses and casting out demons, this keeps coming around and around and around. And so, therefore, there's proof. Now, tonight, as I go through this, Groom of the Stool, I'll keep it down to a minimal. If you read the entry in here, you get an idea of what's going on. The very fact that anybody would put themselves in such a high status that would require someone else to do this for you shows you the narcissism within the royal families. Now, the Anunnaki, the Sumerians, right down to the Zionists, everything that has to do with black nobility, the basic Illuminati, whether it's coming out of the Vatican, whether it's coming out of Buckingham Palace, whether it's coming out of the White House, it's all the same people. And I want to just kind of reconfirm that tonight, that those who were supporting Trump, and I get it, I would love for Trump to be the guy. This country is in such bad shape, but when you're cut from the same cloth, or the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, you'll find that nothing changes. And so I just want to go over that, a little more of that tonight, but a little bit of this. Now, I don't remember if I mentioned, I had a listener that sent me a picture of Hillary and her concession speech. And she and Bill were wearing the purple, the royal purple, which is Luciferian, 33, secret power, basically telling us that they're still in control. They may have lost the chess game, but they're not out of the final draw. And it's basically in your face, again, just stating nothing has changed. We've got another paper boy delivering papers, and that's really what it amounts to, or we've got another groom of the stool instead of Hillary. And again, this position, as we talk about, as you notice the introduction here, that the individuals who did such things, even though this was, who could imagine of ever having that job? And by the way, those people who work in the hospitals and take care of the elderly and those who are sick, God bless you. That's not a job for everyone, but it is a fact of life, and it's the way it is. And so we deal with it. That's why we have the show here. We deal with the truth. We deal with those things that are a reality. We don't look away. It's when you look away that you're then in enslavement, that you're in bondage. And so everything that I do here is to bring you out of that bondage. So the individual that would be the groomer of the stool was also someone who was very close, someone that was trustworthy, because you can imagine the circumstances that an individual would be in, and someone then that that would be usually men, that even with the queen and herself. Now again, come on. So what my point tonight is that when we have brown nosers, basically is what I'm getting at here. When we have those who are fighting for the place of presidency, those things of rulership, those things of supposable nobility and knighted and everything else, really they're nothing more than puppets. They're nothing more than chess pieces. And so that's why I came up with the name tonight, because in reality that's all they're doing is going around and cleaning up the mess and part of the mess and creating the mess. Nothing good comes out of it, because certainly this is not an opportunity to be healthy. This is an opportunity to become diseased, because anyone that deals with such things and not proper care, that's the problem. So when we look at Bill and Hillary wearing purple, it disgusts me. Again, it shows you who these people really are. See, the narcissism, the inability to have sympathy, that in their sickness of apathy, that they're disconnected. They're, again, Hillary or whoever's up there, whatever clone got the number for the day. Again, we're not dealing with humans. We're not dealing with true mankind. We're dealing with a whole different spirit realm. Those things of the physical, as I mentioned, of the Anunnaki, the Sumerians, all the way down through the Zionists, the Luciferians, Rothschilds, Bilderbergers, okay? That's what we're dealing with. And these individuals aren't even human. If they're part human, then they still are of a hybrid. They are still an abomination, and they are not of the Lord. Do you understand that? It's the same thing with the offspring of the Nephilim. Okay? That was an abomination, regardless of the fact that they were born of women, because of the sons of God came into the daughters of women, just like the book of Enoch, when they bore giants. And when you look at the book of giants, by the way, if you get a chance to read that, I've got that on my website. If you look at scotthensler.org, not tinfoil, but scotthensler.org, on the right hand, you'll see a picture of a fallen angel who's basically enticing a human woman. And if you click on that, it'll take you to the Book of Enoch page. And so there's quite a bit of explanation there that tells you, what's going on. And if you get a chance to watch the video, but you'll also see on the right-hand side, Book of Enoch, Jasher, Jubilees, and the Book of Giants. And so their description in there was that they bore monsters, creatures. And they were. There was all kinds of corruption, all kinds of DNA alteration. Lucifer, his gang, his disciples are not creators, they are corruptors. And so when we're dealing with the royalty, when we're dealing with the presidency, we're dealing with corruption, period. No ifs, ands, or buts. And it's hard to maybe visualize that. It's hard to grasp that. But, since I deal with evil all day, when I break curses and cast demons out and interrogate demons and do whatever it takes to find out what the legal right is, I've learned the ugly nature of such the beast. And so there is no difference when it comes to Hillary or Bill, when it comes to Trump, when it comes to Obama. This whole regime is evil, all right? And so please just understand that regardless of your hearts and how you wish the outcome was, that's the true nature of the beast, all right? Now, last week I had 2 shows dedicated to gang stalking, and I wanted to thank Chris again for being on. She did a great job, and a lot of people have been requesting her email and contacting. So the whole point is to educate and get everyone up to speed about what's really going on. Because if you're not affected now, as time goes on, and I want to get into a little bit more of that, the more potential that you are going to be targeted. And for those who are targeted, you're not crazy. That is really happening. You have been selected through the artificial intelligence. Maybe in the very beginning it was man selecting, but there's criteria that have been met. Whether your bloodline, whatever trauma was placed upon you, whatever was going on, you were selected to see the outcome of such behavior, to see if they could crack you, to see how you would react under such trauma and stress. And in this, to learn the human behavior of those who are innocent, okay, then they are learning new ways of tormenting. That's really what it amounts to, okay? All right, so I'm getting caught up on my calls and my emails. I'm pretty much there. I've got a few of them that are overseas. The time difference makes it difficult. So please be careful, be patient. If you have not heard from me and you're local in the States, then give me a call again. I get so many calls, and I try and run everything through the phone. If you email me, I'll send you, my information, answer a question, but basically I'll also just give you my phone number so you can call and leave a message and be on the list. Now, I do not answer the phone, and if I do, it's very rare, because I have answered the phone before, and there's been sacrifices taking place, cutting the throats of animals, and people in the background praying against me, sending curses my way. So I don't answer the phone anymore. And so, don't take it personally if I don't answer the phone. It's for my own protection. So then I weed through what is truth, what is, who really needs help, and then I get back to you from there. So please be understanding about that. When you do deliverance, when we pray, when we break curses, when we expose evil, then evil does whatever it takes to eliminate those who can. Now, that's the order of Jezebel, by the way. That's what Jezebel does in Christian churches and in corporations and in government. Now, again, it doesn't need to be a female, but the higher rank or the higher percentage of Jezebels are female, which are directly linked to the sexual misconduct that was done to them as children, the broken hearts, the abandonment, the rejection, the fear. Everything is part of the tactic plan for trauma-based mind control. You got to remember, the spirit realm never sleeps, never eats. It's running 24 hours a day. And so they know exactly what to do. They are very patient. They haven't got anything else to do anyways. And so they wait for the right opportunity. They'll wait for the right evil individual that has already been infected or sold their soul, that is possessed, to come and do these horrible things. And so that's what I do. That's the definition of what I do, is to set people free, to break that, to remove those curses, to make sure that these bloodline events do not continue on to your children and your grandchildren. And again, this weekend was a classic example of that taking place, with this child now having the ability to have a life without the past generational curses on them. And that was the will of God. That is what his son was sent for. That's what it's all about. And so with that, I thank everyone for supporting me and what I do here. It's sometimes a little tough, sometimes a little rough. It's heartbreaking to see, this. But at the same time, You know, when you're in war, you got to suck it up. You know, I had watched Red Dawn last night, the newer one, the one I don't know how many years ago it came out, a couple of years ago, that was supposedly taking place there in Spokane, Washington, which is only 20 minutes from me, and maybe some of it over in Seattle. But a lot of movies are made there, so that may have actually been where they did it. I don't know, but I know some movies that were made there. Spokane's very friendly to Hollywood. Gee, what a surprise, huh? With all the Luciferian activity there. But, you know, those who were thrusted into having to kill for the first time, having to hunt and gut animals and do all the horrible things that is part of survival, that those who have never done such a thing, it is such a life changer. It can literally mean trauma. Not everybody can take that. That's why we have those, you know, of post-traumatic stress during wars. And so it was an eye-opener or a refresher, I should say, to see and be reminded that there are those who are just not ready for what's coming. And so part of, again, what I do is to get people established in their spirit and their hearts, you know, to prepare yourselves, because it's not pretty. Now, it doesn't mean that things are going to go down the way that everyone says or whatever I say. God is in control. With divine intervention, we know that things can change and have changed, and I believe that the Luciferian are behind in their schedule because there has been intervention. And so, again, when we look at the presidency, when we look at who's been elected, to put our faith in man is not going to take place. Now, people will come along and say we're to pray for our kings and queens and those in authority. Yes, but that is a selected individual of God, one who is godly, one who is God-fearing, one that may be off the beaten path but can be brought back. What we're dealing with here is not human. We need to remember we're dealing with raw evil. Okay, so these are abominations. Now, when we corporately come together and we petition, absolutely, then that's a different story. So, unfortunately, the so-called Christian churches haven't taught you that. Now, again, I wanted to point out, you know, some people think that this website, you know, and the show that I do, being of just solid conspiracy, and that deliverance needs to be on some other channel. Well, excuse me, to understand conspiracy, to understand the way evil thinks, is the victor, is the way that we eliminate it. And so this is part of what I do, and I will continue to do that. Because you need to remember, you cannot negotiate with evil. You have to eradicate it. And to do that, you have to understand it. Again, with Second Heaven Invasion and Hoodoo Voodoo, with the insurgency, counterinsurgency, we come in when we understand, when we're educated about evil and how it thinks and how it's plot and what our enemy is doing, then we can counter. And so those people who are under curses, under mind control, under witchcraft, under trauma, those things that have been post-traumatic stress onto an individual, causing personality disorders, then you're in bondage. So it doesn't matter how much you read, doesn't matter how much you learn, if you haven't been delivered, if you haven't had the curses broke off, if you haven't had the demons cast out, it's going to be business as usual. And so Satan, Lucifer, would just love to keep you in that cycle of going around and around and not getting anywhere. You know, when I did search and rescue and I did man tracking, it is very easy in wooded areas to get turned around, even for trackers. It's one of the reasons we carried with us what we called a drag stick. Now, it doesn't always work in forests as best as it did in desert areas, but we would drag the stick. We would use it to disrupt the ground. If the ground itself was one, you know, especially with rain, especially with snow, then there's a potential higher chance of being able to track yourself back if you're leaving a mark in the ground. You know, I mentioned about the forest in Japan, that many of the people who entered into it to commit suicide or to go in and to contemplate it would use a string. They would tie a string and they would go into this forest, you know, relieving the string as they went along tethered so they could follow themselves back out if they changed their mind, or to give the authorities the ability to find their body later if they did commit suicide. So again, it's an understanding of evil and how it works. So again, hope and change. This is what Obama was, this is what he was campaigning on, which, he's a liar. He's a reptilian. Now he's a clone. Gosh knows whatever he really is right now. The fact that, he looks different through the pictures, it's not a progressive age generation that we see. He can change from one day to the next, from one smile to the next, and this is a typical manifestation, a typical that takes place. So when we look at, what is really happening here and what's being handed over to Trump, we're currently bombing Syria, Iraq, Libya, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Yemen. That's who we're bombing. We're using fighter jets, drones, artillery, and again, U.S. insurgents, meaning troops on the ground, putting our men and women at harm's way, and absolutely ridiculous engagements that have nothing for us to gain. This whole thing is for Israel. This whole thing is for the Illuminati. This whole thing is for the black nobility to put in place their rulers, to put in place military bases, to change their money exchange over into U.S. currency or into whatever they want to do, to get them off the gold standard, to take their resources. Okay, this is nothing more than genocide. All right, so this is what Trump is going to inherit from a man. By the way, Obama, when he first came into office, if you remember, he received the Nobel Peace Prize. Pretty weird for someone first in office who had done nothing and had not been recorded with any accomplishments whatsoever. It was just literally handed to him, and now in 7 stages, Syria, Iraq, Libya, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Yemen, men and women are dying at the hands of Obama. Okay, now he's nothing more than Groomer of the stool, but again, it's his accountability. All right, and this is why Russia is intervening. Now, again, things that I've seen, Putin himself is nothing more than a reptilian. There's pictures of him that go back 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 years. It's definitely him. And so the essence or the exchange or the transformation into a new body is who this is. So, again, there is no honor amongst thieves. And so what's taking place is a control. The ultimate goal is to take over the world, but they love suffering, they love pain, they love killing, they love the spilling of innocent blood, and so this is just a game for them. But again, the conflict between two parties, you've got the main 13 families, and you got 300 families underneath them, and so this is where the Bushes and the Rockefellers and all these guys and where it come from and how they work their way up, and so this is nothing more than who gets the job of being the one to push the button in the end days, and it looks like Trump is probably going to be the one if he makes it in office. So, again, end the war in Iraq didn't take place, okay? Guantanamo didn't go away. Remember, this is where the hope and change of Obama was. Afghanistan, we're still there and we're growing poppies. It's one of the biggest drug manufacturers around. Transparency of rule and law. Well, with all the closed doors and the executive orders that are taking place, with Obamacare, remember, they said we must pass this so we can find out what's in it. Well, the man's a liar, right? Gun control, thank goodness that hasn't been achieved, though there has been some ground taken. And racial tensions are at its utmost highest. So again, hope and change was not the order of business. The order of business was to inflict more damage, more rule over the American people, and to put us into another range of chaos that literally is going to be for World War III. So Trump's promises have already, in my opinion, with him basically compromising, okay, he's all of a sudden gotten friendly with the Clintons, okay, and has mentioned about being counseled by Obama. Well, excuse me, if he's really who he says he was, then he wouldn't have pulled a punch. You need to remember that a man who's in a position, or woman, they get their position, their wealth, their power through climbing up the backs of others. Okay, they didn't get there from being Mr. Nice Guys. So again, this all being nothing more than a game. We're just going to see how it plays out. So in reality, if Trump really does stand against the New World Order and does what he says he's going to do, they will eliminate him, just like they did Kennedy. Now, Kennedy, under another name, was in part of the 13 original families. Okay, so remember, again, all the presidents, in some way or another, are linked to that. So with this, bringing in World War III, okay, it's just going to be a matter of how it all happens to bring it in. And I believe Trump, if he makes it in office, if they don't do the hoax, the false flag of assassinating him, which he won't be, then chaos, civil war. See, this is the point. We already have a great division amongst the American people. With Hillary votes and Trump votes, again, those who would even think that Hillary was acceptable, they're demon possessed. And for those who are conservative, that have not been through deliverance, there's always the potential that when this all comes down, that they'll change. They'll go with the other side. This is part of the brown shirt theories, the compromising that takes place. Now, before I get even in more to that, Zionism. Okay, we also need to remember that Trump is a supporter, and Netanyahu has, the Prime Minister of Israel, has already congratulated Trump in an acknowledgement that Trump has always been a supporter and will continue to be a supporter. So again, it's just business as usual. Okay, with that, the Mossad, ISIS, Saudi Arabia, Freemason, see, it's all still in control. It's all still taking place. We need to remember Israel is really the command center of the Luciferian, of the Zionist agenda, which again goes back to the Anunnaki, which have been, again, Sumerians. So nothing's changed, okay? It's just a matter of this. And then, of course, we've got the churches, okay, who are still under a Babylonian rule, under doctrines that have not been satisfactory for basically the Great Commission of Jesus Christ. And so this is why the countries, why the nations are in the shape that they are. And we need to remember that this government really is run by the bankers, again, the Anunnaki, the New World Order. Okay, and the Zionism is still the catalyst of the last 2 points, Babylonian and the government, that are the manipulators, the controllers of this whole thing. So basically, corruption is all over the place. I mean, it's in everything. It's including our lifestyles. It's the way we think. It's who we are and willing to accept as being tolerant. If we've basically have gone against our own will, then in time our conscience is seared. Okay, so narcissism is at an all-time high here in the U.S. and again even in other countries, and reaching higher and higher. Okay, psychotropic drugs, tropic or whatever you want to say on that. On Europe, I mentioned before, has been 45 to 60% with depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, all of these things because of the demonization. Okay, because God was removed a long time ago and counterfeits were moved in. Now, I saw a video over the weekend that was very disturbing to me. You know how there's cams, on helmets, and people do, where they jump out of a plane or ride a motorcycle or ski or whatever they do. And this was apparently taking place in Europe, and it was a helmet cam. And it was a frequent path of motorcycles, apparently through a very nice area. I'm not sure exactly where. There's beautiful places in Europe, and it was very busy. And so, you had northbound traffic, southbound traffic, kind of like any busy freeway. And it was all one lane. So if you had somebody who was slow and you wanted to pass them, it was a bit tricky because you had so much traffic coming at you. And this particular incident with the bike that had the helmet cam captured two bikes. One went to go around another, and it was kind of on a hill, and at the top of the hill they met, and they must have been going 60 miles an hour, and it was just this tremendous impact. The one person was thrown free into a ditch, but the other one got the brunt basically of the other bike. The bike exploded, and the one that hit the bike, it's the opposing bike, when they fell onto the ground, they sat up for a little bit, and they went back down, apparently unconscious, dead, whatever the story was. But then the bike, because of the impact, caught on fire. Gasoline was thrown everywhere because the tanks were ruptured. And so now the bikes are on fire, and it creeped its way over onto the unconscious individual. And I have to assume that they were either completely unconscious or dead, because when you have that kind of temperature on you, even people unconscious can be woken up. But the horrifying thing of it was, nobody did anything. All the traffic that was running just went around them, went around them, went around them. Even the person filming this didn't do anything. And so here's this person, whether he was still alive or not, no one bothered to even try and put them out. So the fire consumed them and consumed them. And it was horrifying. And the reason that I brought this up is it just showed that there was no compassion, no love of man, no ability to feel that they had to come to the aid of their brother. And unfortunately, regardless of being Europe, this takes place here. And, with the programming of 911, you should call 911 instead of taking care of situations, whether someone's choking, whether, even if you were the ability to stop an assault, a lot of people just won't do it. And, and with the legal system being the way that it is, and people being sued, well, that was the whole intent of the court system in the first place. It's part of the tyranny, part of putting you in bondage, keeping you from being who God intended you to be, or at least the good citizen, the one that was upstanding, that believed in justice and believed in freedom and keeping the peace. And so that's put us into the state of where we are now, that when they move in, when martial law is brought, it's basically going to be every man for themselves, and it's just a terrible situation. So with that, even that gentleman that was on fire, and I assume it was a man, the apathy was horrifying. And by the way, that can be a spirit. Whenever you have an area, a territory, a land, a nation, a country that has walked away from God, these spirits move in. And when they take over a population, they literally can keep the whole population in bondage because of their lack of will to even care for themselves. Because you need to remember that this all, what goes around comes around, and eventually it's all consuming. Evil, that's just what it does. And so there you go. Socialism, okay? Basically, in that in itself, when you think that you're all for one and one for all, that's not the case. That whole thing is a lie. And really what you've done is you've sold yourself out to a government. Again, as I mentioned about Red Dawn, that was what they were trying to speak to the people about, that were basically captured. Let's say Spokane was taken, and with their propaganda stating that how they were going to take care of them, everything was going to be good, and how all the selfishness and all the the capitalism. See, capitalism's bad, right? And so this tactic of social engineering to reprogram for re-education in the camps has been taking place all along. This is part of the education system in our homes, in our families. For our kids, the government's been doing this a long time. But see, again, with sympathizers to cooperate, this is what we refer to as brown shirts, and I refer to as the brown shirt spirit. So basically, this million-man army that Obama has put together, I've mentioned before last week that's also part of the gang stalking, that these individuals that didn't have anything going for them, now they've got money, now they've got a car, now they've got clothes on their back, and they've got a nice place to stay, to basically go out and terrorize you. So if you're being gang stalked, you can thank Obama for a great deal of that, okay? So basically, in the new rule, they will turn in even, people within their own families. We again saw this, and basically, the gang stalkers themselves that are even here, that they them too will be pointing the finger when they see, any event to try and move away and get out from underneath tyranny. The gang stalkers themselves, because of the cell phones, the technology that they have, can pinpoint a person quite quickly. So it's going to get worse. It's going to get uglier. Okay. So those people are going to take the mark, which means also spiritually, to buy or sell. They too will be brown shirts, and they too will turn you in. Okay. But you need to remember that that this whole thing that's taking place with trying to convert everyone over to be as a one world government, one world order, that it's really for lining everyone up for mass genocide. Okay, so even those Christians, New Agers, witches, Freemasons, even in the lower ranks, you're all in this together. Okay, so you need to understand that you're being used. If you've been in agreement, if you've practiced such things, you need deliverance. And without the deliverance, you're most likely with the fear demons that have been put in, because if you have Freemason in your family, you have fear of death, fear of sound, of loud noises, fear of man, and other things like that. And so that keeps you in bondage, because you will avoid, suffering and pain at all cost, and so you will do things that you normally wouldn't do. And so with that implemented into an individual with a certain alignment of spirits, also your personality over time adapts and adjusts to it. This is what we call personality disorders, and this is why those who go to a certain point, there is no coming back. There's always divine intervention, yes, but in the percentage of it, from what I've seen over the years, there's about 1/3 that doesn't come back. That's not very good, but I'm afraid that's the case. So there you go. All right. All right. Just remember again, bottom line is there is no negotiation with evil. Okay. All right. So with that, we need to make a decision of who we are. We need to make that now. We need to understand what we're willing to tolerate, what we're willing to stand against. Okay. Okay, Trump is only going to continue the deception, the agenda, because as I pointed out, he's not really who he's made himself out to be. He may do some good things, but in the end of the day, it's all going to be the same. Okay, when he gets into office, and if he gets into office, most likely, again, he'll be the one that'll be bringing in World War III. That's the pattern. This left-right paradigm, this left-right game, splitting us up here in the United States. Is basically, Obama has set the stage with his, with all the laws that he's passed, with executive orders, with already implementing division between blacks and whites and whatever the situation is, by basically giving away and getting rid of our industry, our resources that we had for fuel always has to be brought in, for our foods being brought in. When the ships stop, we go hungry, and this is what they wanted. So that's all been set. Okay, you need to remember that the moment the trucks stop and cease on the highways, that the food on the shelves just disappear. Okay, so Bush, changing the laws with 9/11, because they're the implementers of that, that the altering for the Constitution, implementing the Patriot Act, has basically put us under martial law to one more degree. And so Israel, being ready for nuclear strikes with their high-tech weapons, also including satellites, also including psychotronic weaponry, it's and instituting ISIS with the U.S., being basically the attack dogs in the Middle East. We've already got boots on the ground here, and as I mentioned for Red Dawn, by the way, the infiltrators were North Korea. And we need to remember that when Hillary was negotiating, she gave nuclear warheads to North Korea. So that was only one thing. You can imagine what else that they've given. So when it comes to taking down our defense systems. We really don't have any defenses coming out of the south. Anything in the water that may have been for sonar has been turned off. We have, the northern up there in Alaska for the nuclear defense against Russia. Basically, that's, not, they've just basically butchered that. It's not running as it should. And of course, we have those things of the east because, again, even though London, Europe, may pretend to be our ally, when we have, the Atlantic, and we have the pillars, as we, mentioned before, that show Boaz and those things of the Luciferian, Illuminati, Freemasonry, that they're in cahoots. And so submarines, literally, I believe, are going to come out of the Atlantic as well as that as down, in the Gulf there, just, for Texas, which has already been seen. We've already got ships that have been seen. Really has put us in that position. So, again, with Clinton, Bush, Obama, and now Trump, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the dominoes are set up. Okay, and of course the Christian Church supporting, basically the takeover and the bombing of the Middle East, again implementing, the Luciferian agenda, the control, putting U.S. bases, which is nothing more than us being under control of them, and just setting that world stage. And you know that. I mean, you do your homework. That's why you've been listening to the show, okay? And, the thing we need to remember in the meantime, there's a great destruction that's happening within our own homes, okay? We still have a massive amount of divorce. Friendships are ending. Things are just not working out as we planned. Nothing is forever. The economy, regardless of what the stocks are, jobs are down. People are having to work 2 jobs just to make sure food's on the table and pay the bills. People are in a high amount of debt. Again, bankruptcies are still, up there. It's just a matter, of time, with the collapse of the dollar, closing of the banks. And again, all this. Again, I'm just reminding you that, again, if you're putting all your efforts and all your, thinking that the groomer of the stool, Trump, is literally going to be one who's going to save us, again, that's not the case. I'm sorry. I wish it was. I just wish it was, but it's not. It's not. Okay? Okay, so, again, with ever more increase the division between liberals and conservatives, okay? Again, with the nation being split the way it is, this is pretty much the scenario that we started to see during the Civil War. And it didn't take much. Again, because this nation has been under the rule of Freemasonry, under the establishment from Albert Pike and everything from therefore, then we don't have the protection we had before. There may have been a little more biblical protection, a little more godly protection, but because we've been killing the children in the womb, and now we're killing those children outside the womb, which is the establishment, we are at an all-time high for blood spilt in this country, okay? And we need to remember that without a corporate repentance with the government that we supposedly elected and we've allowed to be in office, because we could have, through the Constitution, have taken that back, but we didn't, that we basically allowed evil to prevail. So with the government-run education, the brainwashing of our children, we now have a generation that really doesn't know what it's like to be prior to that with what we have today. Ever more increase of division, again, with this liberal and conservative. There's hatred more now than ever. And since Trump has won, of course, they're going to throw fuel on the fire to cause the liberals to be even more hateful of conservatives. They literally see us as evil, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. So there you go. So, and even conservatives starting themselves to act more like liberals. Again, with the deception of thinking that perversion is acceptable. Okay? Pedophilia, human trafficking, pornography, homosexuality, all of this stuff is a stage in the spirit realm to allow evil to move about freely. Okay? When I do a deliverance and I go through and I get people to renounce that and break it, and I cast out the perversion demons, those things that have been involved in such things, their lives change. Okay, so they're no longer in bondage, and now they can see their sin. Now they know that they've been under this bondage, and they're not happy. Okay, because that's not who God intended them to be, and so they never really have a good day. And Jose, we had, who was once a practicing homosexual, we've had on the show, and he's told us himself how miserable it is, how they fight amongst themselves, and how that the more they do it, the more spirits that come in, that cannibalism is actually another degree and another level. And so it tells us the depravity. That's where we're at. I mean, my goodness, how do we not understand that? So the remnant few that are holding out right now are basically the ones being gang stalked. Okay? And more it's happening more and more. Sickness, mental illness, bipolar, schizophrenia. Again, the fact of what I do on deliverance, this just shows more and more that it's happening, and so I'm staying more busy than ever, and the cases are getting even worse. So even though we reveal and we bring out the truth, the basic truth is that if you're in bondage under demons, you're going to still continue to believe the lie and think that you don't need to do anything or that you can't do anything. And again, that's one of the big lies that's out there. Okay, so the ones that are covered in the blood basically are still making it through. The ones who were not covered under the blood of Christ, that were the whistleblowers, the ones that were revealing, many of them have fallen. Many of them have been taken out. Many of them have just disappeared. And so we need to understand that when we serve the Most High God, we need to be in obedience. We need to move forth as we've been called to do. And so when we understand who is Christ and what He did for us, and we get that covering, then we're able to stand against the wiles of the enemy. Again, we're harassed. We're under attack. Yes, we are. But that's just part of battle. That's part of war. And our tools that have been given to us to fight back is the difference. And so those who have perished that were, ones that brought that information to us about what's really going on, God bless them. What an incredible situation where you want to believe in humanity, you want to do what's right, and then it turns out that the very people that you thought you were helping were the actually perpetrators. What has been pointed out that many of you have been in a relationship with reptilians. Many of you have worked for reptilians. Many of you right now are in friendships with reptilians, and you're going to find out real fast that, who is your brother, who is your sister in Christ. All right? So the ones claiming to be conservatives but are not are basically also going to be the ones that are going to be affected a great deal by the psychotronics. And with that comes mind control, okay? And that mind control, they literally can get you to do things you wouldn't normally do. And that also means that you're the gang stalker. You know what? There's many people that I've worked with who actually were part of the gang stalking. They themselves were being misused. They themselves were being mistreated. They themselves were being targeted. But because of their behavior, their lashing out, their survival, trying to survive, then they themselves were actually harassing and being part of the gang stalking. Okay? So please take a step back and look at who you are and what you're truly doing. So if Trump really was the threat, he would have been taken out already. Okay? And we need to remember that, Trump himself, as time goes on, he's going to be looking more like the clones of Hillary. Okay, one time she's ancient, she looks like the old bag that she is. Next time she looks younger. Next time she's heavier. Next time she's a little more bustier. Next time around she's got a bigger bottom. Come on, her hair between her earlobes and her nose and the profile and the teeth and come on. I mean, let's figure it out. And Trump himself, who knows? There's information showing that he's a clone as well. But I also have seen photographs where his eyes have gone reptilian. So whatever the case is, again, we need to remember what we're dealing with, okay? So if it were not for my faith, if it were not for my deliverance years ago, and for me continuing the way that I do, and getting into the Word and praying and renouncing, confessing, and warring myself and making sure that things aren't attached to me, I would have been taken out a long time ago. I know I would have. I know that what I went through 15 plus 20 years ago, that I wouldn't have survived it if it hadn't been for the blood of Jesus Christ. And so I want you to understand, regardless of who you are, if you don't believe in God, if you don't believe in Christ, to understand that the only reason that I exist and the only reason I'm able to do this is because of the blood of the Lamb. And through any other means, it's not going to work, okay? So, this road just is not over yet, okay? We've got a long path ahead of us. Okay, so, the past years have been an absolute challenge for, this ministry and what I do. I don't know if I should call it a ministry, whatever you want to call it. The challenges of the things that we have exposed that people didn't want to hear that we're supporting, dropped their support and made it tougher, but we've made it. I've made it. And the rejection of the mainstream church, for deliverance, even though it's the Great Commission, even the rejection of those newfound concerning truth, even in relation to Zionism, has been, quite disturbing and quite painful. But it's part of learning to know that you've got to have thick skin if you're going to do this. If you're going to go up against the enemy, and every tactic will be thrown at you. Okay, and then not to, to forget about the electronic weaponry that has been deployed, those things of psychotronics, those things of ELF and high frequencies, microwave, pressure, noise, illnesses, confusion, loss of sleep. It just, it's amazing. But again, the only reason that I can say that I'm here is because apparently I do have a job to do. And so that's one of the reasons I thank you for helping me, because like I said, I can't do this alone. And without you, I don't know what I would do. So there are still disbelievers, even of today, about the events that are taking place. Well, you're just going to have that, okay? They were drinking and eating and being merry, and even in the last days. And so even the Christians themselves are still thinking that things are 10, 20, 30 years out there. Now, there are those who know that we are in the end times, but are still doing very little or understanding the tactic and the ploy of how things are going. Now, with the corruption of biblical text, okay, proof has been shown again with, Mandela effect, but I believe, too, that things have been altered. Certainly we know that books have been removed, with the so-called canons, which really shouldn't be called that. With Scripture in itself, the removing of the other books that gives us 66. It's an occult number. So, God being a God of order, that's not the case. So also with the corruption of history, the documentation of history, which has been rewritten, that if we were to really know the truth of the history, we wouldn't tolerate such things. And so, that's part of a brainwashing. The corruption of the family. The family itself is no longer the backbone of the strength of this nation that kept us, where we are. When you rear children up in truth and in love, that is part of the blessing. And when you have broken homes, when you have, things that come in that are not bringing light, let's say perversion runs rampant within families. I'm sorry, TV is perverted, and so by allowing kids and those to see such things, that rewires the brain. But with the acceptance of it, also gives legal right to the spirit realm to have you, okay? And then with the destruction of the unborn, again, brought in the destruction of the born, because, those that have been partial birth, that is a born child, and that is murder. No ifs, ands, or buts. And so, again, can we call ourselves civilized? Can we refer to ourselves as just? Are we even worthy? I mean, let's just face it. So again, that's why I say these things, for you to understand and to take a stand and comprehend who you really are. Okay? Don't let Lucifer tell you who you are. Okay, let the Holy Spirit tell you are. Let God tell you who you are. Let that quiet, still, gentle little spirit inside you tell you who you are. And in truth and in knowledge, you're able to discern who you are. And again, this is part of what deliverance is all about. And again, without the truth of God and His Son, evil wins. So, regardless of circumstances, when people repent and come together in corporate prayer, they can always take back what the enemy has stolen. Okay? So for now, just please prepare yourselves spiritually, physically, emotionally. Get yourself right. Take care of business. Because, again, whether Trump even makes it into office, whether he when he's in office, if he makes it, things are going to be accelerated. There's just no other way around it. We've just gone too far. And again, I'm not a fatalist. I'm trying to be a realist. And without bringing you the information, I'm reminding you. I'm reminding you of the things that are bad, but also confirming that when you're in Christ, that it's a different outcome. You may lose your life, but you save it. Okay, so you need to be prepared in all ways. So again, the spiritual ability, the mental ability to deal with those things coming, that's part of boot camp. That's part of preparing soldiers for the horrible things that take place in war. That when a bomb goes off or your buddy gets shot, you may hesitate for a moment, but you get back in the fight. Okay, so the more time that goes on before the main event, the more gang stalking that's going to take place. That number is going to increase. Psychotronic effect is going to take place. Okay, basically it's going to just hit this population in the United States even more and more. And so again, understand what it is. If you hear voices, okay, the old saying goes, don't believe everything that you hear, don't believe everything that you see or experience, your emotional thoughts. They may be electronically manipulated, okay, but you may also be dealing with spirits. Again, that's part of what deliverance is all about. And see how it's even needed more than ever to weed out, is it electronic, is it spirit, is there something I need to be dealt with, in generational sins and curses? So then, with this ability to separate the two, then you're able to stand against the wiles of the enemy and then stand corporately against those who are in tyranny, forcing tyranny upon us, okay? So it's exposing evil and standing and corporately together. There's no other way around it. So two or more are gathered, standing there, you can do this. So there is going to be divine intervention, regardless of how the chess pieces are being moved. God is going to do something. Now, as I close here, in Genesis 39, Joseph, Potiphar's wife, that whole scenario, he was thrown, basically behind irons, but in an instant and in a moment, he was called. He was let out. And so let's say the groomers that were with him, they were shaving him, they were clothing him, they were sponge bathing him as he was going down the hallways to meet royalty, to be called forth, and in a moment's notice, he had to be ready. Okay, so this is a perfect example that be ready at all times. Okay, Genesis 39, Joseph. So again, I want to thank everyone for helping out and what you do. If you got questions, I'm probably maybe next show Wednesday. So I'm doing Monday, Wednesdays, and Friday. As the time allows, I'm going to be doing more research into two things to give more information. But I'm also going to be opening up Wednesday for those who have questions. So if you've got questions, feel free to email me. Maybe I'll leave the email open for when I do the show, and we'll just move along, and I'll give you my best thought and understanding of things. So that way we can all be on the same page and be a group and feel as if you're part of all this. So again, the fact of what I did for the young girl a year ago that I prayed for over the weekend was a testimony that the enemy can be defeated. All right, God bless everyone.
You're listening to the all-new KBLU Radio Network. That's the Blue Raven Network. Visit our website at www.oneblueraven.weebly.com.
Often duplicated, never replicated. You're listening to the all-new KBLU Radio Network, Blue Raven Network.